the prisoner who secretly donated his bone marrow. This prisoner was sentenced to 20 years in jail, but he had a secret plan all along. One day the prison guard came to him and told him that there was someone outside who wanted to speak with him. He was led to a room where an attractive woman sat with a child by her side. They both looked at him, and the man felt his heart skip a beat when he realized who they were. The woman said, "I'm here with my son. We wanted to tell you how grateful we are for your incredible gift." He still didn't understand what they were talking about, so she continued, "My son has been very sick with cancer. Doctors told us he needed a bone marrow transplant or he would die. We were put on a waiting list, but it would have taken too long, and there was no guarantee he would make it." She then explained that a few days earlier, a guard had come to her husband and asked if he could donate his bone marrow to a child in need. Her husband had agreed, but he insisted on total anonymity. The guard had tracked them down and brought him here to meet the child he had saved. The boy smiled at him and said, "Thank you for giving me my life." The man couldn't believe it. He had donated bone marrow before, but he never knew the people he had helped. In this case, he not only saved the child's life, but also got to meet him. He was led out of the room with tears in his eyes and many questions on his mind. How did they know who he was? How did the guard find them? And most importantly, was the child really his? He didn't know any of the answers, but he hoped to find out one day. 3 months after the prison visit, he received a letter from the grateful parents. They thanked him again for donating bone marrow and saving their son's life. They wrote that the doctors had confirmed that the transplant was a success and that their son was healthy and happy. The boy was doing well in school and was even playing soccer again. His parents admitted that they had asked the guard for help in locating the donor because they wanted to personally thank him. The guard had agreed, but had warned them that it might take time before they got a response. The couple understood that their son's donor was in prison and they respected his privacy. But they were still hopeful that one day he would agree to meet them and their son. The man was moved by the letter. He had no idea that the child he had helped was so active and full of life. It gave him hope that the donation had been the right thing to do. But he still had no idea how the guard had found them. 5 years went by. The man's hair had turned gray and his face was lined with wrinkles. He was now 45 years old and had lost his youthful looks. Then one day he heard the sound of heavy footsteps approaching him. He looked up and saw a familiar face. It was the boy from the prison visit, now 18 years old and taller than his father. "You saved my life," the young man said, looking into his eyes. "I just wanted to say thank you." The man was shocked. It was indeed the child he had helped 5 years ago. But how did he know who he was? Was it really him? He asked the young man to sit down and then began questioning him about his health, his studies, and his future plans. The teenager told him that he was studying to be a doctor and that he wanted to travel the world to help sick children. He also told him that his parents were very proud of him and that they had raised a large sum of money for a new playground in the children's hospital. The man listened intently, feeling a sense of pride and accomplishment. He had no idea that the child he had helped had such big dreams and aspirations. He asked the young man if he could visit his parents and thank them in person. The teenager agreed, saying that they would be very happy to see him. As the two men walked out of the prison together, they saw the guard from the prison waiting for them. The man approached the guard and asked him how the boy had found him. The guard looked at him and smiled, saying, "It was me. I took the liberty of telling them who you were, hoping they wouldn't mind." The man nodded, understanding. He had known the guard was involved somehow, but he hadn't thought it would be this way. As they drove away, The man looked back at the prison, his heart filled with gratitude and joy. He had saved the child's life, and now he had the chance to see him grow up and become a successful doctor. He knew that this was the right thing to do, even if it meant staying in prison for longer. But why did he donate his bone marrow in the first place? Well, that goes back to his childhood. When he was just 17 years old, he was arrested for a crime he didn't commit. He'd been hanging out with some friends near the scene of a robbery when the police arrived. They assumed he was involved and didn't listen to his protests. He was charged with the crime and sent to trial. But the evidence against him was weak and shaky. The witnesses were unsure, and the surveillance footage was inconclusive. Still, the jury found him guilty, and he was sentenced to 20 years in prison. His family and friends were shocked. They knew he was innocent and tried to appeal the decision. But the court stood by their ruling, and he was sent to jail. When he arrived at the prison, he was scared and confused. He had never been in trouble with the law before and didn't know what to expect. The other inmates were rough and tough, and he quickly learned to defend himself. Over the years, he tried to keep a low profile and avoid any more trouble. He worked in the prison library, helping other inmates with their research and reading materials. He also started exercising regularly and eating healthy to stay fit. He knew that if he got into any fights or caused any trouble, he would be sent to solitary confinement. And he didn't want to spend any more time alone than he already was. He spent his days reading books and learning new things. He taught himself how to play chess and checkers and challenged anyone who dared to question his intelligence. He was sharp and witty and could hold his own in any argument. He was also kind and compassionate and often lent an ear to those who needed it. He became known as a wise and insightful man, someone who could offer advice and support when it was needed the most. One day, the prison guard approached him and asked him if he would be interested in participating in a bone marrow donation drive. He had heard that the man had a rare blood type and was hoping that he could help save someone's life. The man didn't hesitate. He knew that he was in prison and had little to offer the world, but he still had the ability to help others. He agreed to donate bone marrow, hoping that it would make a difference in someone's life. He underwent tests and screenings and was cleared to proceed with the donation. He knew that there was a chance that the bone marrow wouldn't match, but he was willing to try. The procedure was painful, but he endured it without complaint. He thought about the child who might receive his bone marrow and the possibility that he could save their life. A few days later, the guard approached him again and told him that the bone marrow had matched. The man was overjoyed. He couldn't believe that he had actually made a difference. But he knew that he shouldn't get too excited. He was still in prison and had a long sentence to serve. The guard told him that the recipient of the bone marrow was a 7-year-old boy who had leukemia. The boy's name was Alex, and he was in desperate need of a transplant. The man thought about the boy and his family and prayed that everything would work out. The surgery was performed and the man's bone marrow was transplanted into Alex. The recovery process was slow and difficult, but eventually Alex was able to go home and live a normal life. The man heard that Alex made a full recovery and was grateful that he had played a part in that. But he never got to meet the boy or his family. He didn't think it was appropriate and didn't want to cause any trouble. Years went by, and the man tried to put the donation out of his mind. He continued to work in the library and exercise and read. He also started writing stories and poems, pouring his heart and soul into his writing. He didn't have much to show for his time in prison, but he had his writing, and that was enough for him. Then one day the guard approached him again, told the man that he had been chosen for a special visit. He would be allowed to meet Alex and his family. The man was shocked. Couldn't believe that after all this time he would finally get to see the boy he had helped. He was nervous and excited at the same time. He wondered how Alex would react when he saw him and how his parents would greet him. When the day of the visit arrived, the man was led to a small room where Alex and his parents were waiting for him. Alex was now 18 years old and taller than his father. He looked at the man with admiration and gratitude. His parents were also very nice and thanked the man for saving their son's life. They told him that Alex had made a full recovery and was studying to be a doctor. The man was overjoyed. He couldn't believe that he had actually made a difference in someone's life. He had donated bone marrow and saved Alex's life. Now he got to meet him and see how he was doing. They talked for hours, and the man learned that Alex was doing well in school and had a bright future ahead of him. He was proud of the young man he had become. The visit ended, and the man was led back to his cell. Couldn't stop thinking about Alex and his family. He knew that he had done the right thing by donating bone marrow, and he was grateful for the opportunity to have met them. From that day on, the man knew that he had a purpose in life. He wasn't just a prisoner with a long sentence to serve. He was a hero who had saved a child's life. He continued to write stories and poems, but now he also started volunteering in the prison library. He tutored other inmates and helped them learn how to read and write. He also organized a book club and started a newspaper in the prison. He was determined to make the most of his time and help others along the way. The man never forgot the grateful smile on Alex's face when he had given him the bone marrow. He knew that he had made a difference in the young man's life, and that was enough for him. Even though he was in prison, he had hope for the future and was grateful for the second chance he had been given. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please like and share it with your friends.